Let me share with you the tale of 4 traveling pioneers who sought out adventure on the trail. More specifically, the Oregon Trail. Our party consisted of Robert, our adventurer who is optimistic and heroic. Violet, a banker who is egotistical and frail. Emmett, a farmer who is charming and frail. And Molly the missionary, who is pugnacious but neat. All of these individuals have different strengths and weaknesses, but they all share the same common goal of going from independence to Oregon City. Our story starts on May 1st, 1849. Our group purchased the hunter's kit, leaving them with only $156 to their name. In the first leg of their journey, the group trekked onward to Fort Kearny. In this portion of the journey, the group really got an intro as to how their future is going to look. They met a few people that would make an impact on their lives. They met Samuel Peppard, who is an English inventor working on a flying machine. Jane and her daughter Little Mary, who were a couple of travelers that had their wagon breakdown going to Oregon City. All of the strangers were helped by the crew and in turn created long-lasting friendships throughout their quest. Even a few random kind strangers bearing gifts were also encountered by the group. The group, knowing they will be trudging across 2 rivers in the first leg, realized that they need to stock up on pelts. Pelts are a useful tool that seal your wagon as you cross deep rivers, especially if you caulk your wagon. The first crossing was the Kansas River crossing. It was shallow enough to not need any pelts. However, the Big Blue River afterwards didn't get its name for nothing. Initially, it started out as 7.1 feet deep with a moderate current, but by caulking the wagon, that gave the team a 51% chance of success to cross. The troop decided to wait till the next day to see if the conditions would improve, and the river ended up dropping 6 inches overnight. That increased their success rate by 4%. The group didn't want to waste any more time this early in the journey because winter could be their downfall. So they pelted their wagon, crossed the river, knowing that they would have an 81% chance of it being successful, and they made it. After using all of their pelts, the group sent Robert to go hunting for 2 more. The remaining time of the trip included the group damaging the wagon. This made their inventory smaller, so some shifting around had to be done. But luckily, they packed some toolkits and they were able to repair the wagon where it was broken. Just before they arrived at Fort Kearny, they found a small river that they could go fish in. They were able to stock up on a supply of fish for the journey, but weren't fully able to retrieve all of the meat. Had they taken the bitter winter journey from the main menu, they would have had access to a knife that would allow them to cut more meat out of their fish. For the remainder of the time, the group admired the beautiful landscape. Developed using Unreal Engine, the landscapes bring a beautiful 3D landscape, which is a fun and modern contrast to our pixel art travelers. Not to mention the alt country soundtrack. It even received its own vinyl at the launch of the game and is available to stream on Spotify. But alas, the group arrived at Fort Kearny on May 25th, 24 days after they had left Independence. The group had a short stop and then quickly left to go on their trek towards Fort Laramie. Along the way, they helped a priest who had his wagon break down, and they also sent Robert off on a hunt. And as they continued onward, they discovered a murder. After gathering the evidence and a few incorrect accusations, they were then removed by a dragoon soldier. And I'll tell you what, Molly knows it was that Kellogg brand son of a beating the rain. The group came to one of the many campsites among the trail, and since they're starting to get low on hygiene, they're hoping to clean themselves. But sadly, it was just a rest spot to increase their stamina. Once they arrived at Fort Laramie, they stocked up on supplies, fixed their wagon, rested, and brought back up their health to continue on with their journey. And 10 miles into the journey, the group got lost. Emmett decided to guide the party, and after a large delay, the party was able to get on the right path. After lots of walking, the group finds a log, and instead of going around it, they decide to work on clearing the tree from the path, in which drains half of the party's stamina. Molly checked the flour and some of it had become waterlogged, so she decides to toss out the contaminated pieces to prevent sickness in the future. Molly got attacked by a snake and Robert volunteered to suck out the venom. In doing so, Robert got a fever and fell ill. The group arrived to the Green River crossing and the water was 6.4 feet deep. So they rested until it was 4.7 feet deep to then caulk and seal the wagon to cross. The group was sadly unsuccessful and was swept downstream, but luckily they didn't lose any items. Continuing on, they found discarded crates and barrels. Robert, with a fever, goes to inspect them to find supplies. However, he's struck with a splinter and develops an infection. And then suddenly a dust devil comes along and strikes the group. Emmett breaks his leg and Molly attempts to heal him, but he fails. So they chose to rest for Emmett, hopefully that he somehow heals his broken leg overnight. However, he shortly dies after. 4 miles from Fort Hall, a dust storm sweeps in, grating the skin of our travelers. Robert and Molly have just died. When it rains, it pours. Now all hope that is left is Violet and her 1 ox. Violet arrived to Fort Hall. She cleaned up her health, storage, and headed out to Fort Boise. All was good until Violet's ox died. She harvested its meat, but now she's kind of into a situation. She's stranded. So she inspected the area to find food or help, but nothing. And with only 5 bullets left, she went hunting for food. And after several days, a group of travelers come by and they were kind enough to sell her an ox, but they wouldn't just give it to her, even though she's in the situation that she's in. That ended up being what Violet needed to get to the 3-island crossing by herself. And here she is faced with 4.5 foot extreme currents, and she has 5 pelts on hand. She waits until it drops to 3.8 foot rapids to cross, but sadly, Violet was dragged under the water to never be seen again. No one from our group had made it to Oregon City, but if you want to hear other successful and unsuccessful stories about the Oregon Trail, the game is currently on the Nintendo Switch for $30 US. And this rendition of the Oregon Trail isn't just like the classic computer game. There are journeys you can participate in that will allow you to unlock new features within the main Oregon Trail game. And by journeys, I mean there are 3 types. You have your travel, survival, and challenge. The travel focuses on reaching a destination or seeing how far you can get to it. An example would be the classic Oregon Trail game. Survival is all about putting you in harsh conditions to see if you have what it takes to stay alive. One example is Bitter Winter, where you are lost on your final leg to Oregon City and you have to find your 3 missing traveling companions. And lastly, there are challenges that consist of challenges that you face on the Oregon Trail, such as hunting, fishing, and even the classic water rafting game from the original computer game. Aside from journeys are online events that you can participate in. Some are just objectives to complete, and others unlock items that you can use throughout the Oregon Trail game, or even give you tokens. Tokens are an in-game currency that allow you to put on filters to your game, artwork, or even unlock music. These games are refreshed weekly, so there's more of an incentive to keep you coming back. Lastly, there's a journal area that tells you about your achievements, stats about your gameplay, as well as global stats for the past week, month, or all time, your collections of fish and animals you've seen or caught during your gameplay, and your California Trail checklist. Well, that is the end of our story about the Oregon Trail. If you want to reminisce the classic computer game, you can download the game from the Nintendo eShop, Apple Arcade, Steam, and the Microsoft Store. If you enjoyed this video, or at least found it at all helpful when researching this game, please leave a like or leave a comment down below. I'm Maddie, the Hippie Hacker, and I will catch you all on the flip side. Bye!